Welcome back, viewers. In our studios, we have an expert on leadership, virtual teams, and workplace performance. She has over 15 years of experience designing and conducting training programs for international and US clients. She has been teaching management at Harvard for over 10 years. So let's welcome Dr. Myra S. White. Welcome to our studios, Dr. White.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. And we also have Mr. Shahryar Mia, who is a former student of Dr. White at Harvard. Welcome to our studios.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, Dr. White, I was going through your profile and I've read a lot about you. You are a scholar, a teacher, a trainer, and you have an expertise, in management, in leadership, and you have been conducting, various, courses on management and leadership all across the globe. And you are very well qualified, I was just looking at your educational background. You did your PhD in psychology, from Harvard. Then you also, you're a JD from Harvard Law School. And then you're also an electrical and a computer engineer, from Northwestern. So what is this combination?
I have endless amounts of curiosity. I know a little bit about everything and not much about anything is what I tell people. I did the electrical computer and computer engineering course first. I did that, which then helped me pay for my education, and then I went on and did my doctorate at Harvard and my law degree at Harvard Law School, and I graduated 1 year before Barack Obama.
Oh, is that right? Okay,
Yeah,
okay. So are you...
If that's some kind of qualification, I'm not sure.
So are you...
Depends on your political
Oh,
orientation.
it is a big qualification, I must say that. So are you in contact with President Obama?
No, not directly. He wasn't one of my close friends when I was at Harvard Law School. My fellow classmates are networked into him more than I am.
Okay.
So, but I know all the stories about him.
All right. So, Dr. White, obviously, our viewers will have a great opportunity to learn about your experience and your expertise on management and leadership. So, would you like to tell us, a little bit, what kind of courses normally you design and conduct all across the world?
I do a lot on leadership, and so my interest really is on how people become great leaders, what are their qualities. I focus a lot on what people do, what are the actions that people take that make them be leaders. So rather than focusing on the qualities, like someone has to be this type of person or that type of person. And so my research focuses on that, and what I teach people is the path to leadership and the kind of strategies and techniques and steps that people take as leaders, which make them successful in that arena, and also leads them to become leaders within their field.
Okay, so obviously, when you talk about leadership, so what are the attributes or the factors, how one can become a good leader?
Well, I think one of the most important things that if you're on the path to leadership is to first understand who you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your passions are. Because what I found in terms of leaders, people who are leaders, is that they really know what they do well. And I've developed this concept called mini strengths, because I think in our culture what we tend to do is we tend to look at people's mega strengths. In other words, whether they got good grades in school. But if you think about it, getting good grades in school involves being good maybe at writing, or you might be good at math, you might be good at solving math problems, you might be good at doing math calculations. Those are all little mini strengths, and if someone, and most people just do some of those things well. They don't do everything well. And so what I find is that leaders know exactly what they do well. And then they also know what they do badly. So what they do is they're more likely to delegate those bad things that are things that are considered their weaknesses to other people. So an example would be someone like Richard Branson, who has founded the Virgin
yeah.
empire of all sorts of different businesses. And he realized when he started his first business that he wasn't any good at math and keeping track of the numbers or the money, and that he was losing money. But he also realized that his best friend from high school, a man named Nick, was really good at numbers. So he brought Nick in, and he totally turned the whole thing over to him to do, and they started to make a profit. Nick was very thrifty and watched the numbers very carefully. And he does that when he buys a business or he decides to go into a business. He's very good at picking people who have the kind of strengths, or what I call mini strengths, these little things that they do well. He's very good at picking them and putting them in the business. So I find that with leaders, that they're very good at seeing these small talents in other people. They don't try to do it all. They don't try to be good at everything. So I think this is all part of this idea of self-awareness, of knowing who you are, accepting who you are, realizing that who you are is okay, and being comfortable with that, and also knowing what you're passionate about. So I think those are sort of key kind of things that I see in leaders, and one of the things
that's very nice. Okay, so leadership is an element which I'm going to mention that to you, that it's an element which is missing in most of the underdeveloped countries, especially with special reference to Middle East or South Asia. So what is your take on it?
Well, I mean, I think it's also missing in many places in the world.
That's right.
Also in the West.
In the West,
I
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
isolate it to that area. There's a lot of problems in the United States in terms of leadership. They aren't attacking their problems. India has problems.
That's right.
China has problems. But I think part of what's happened is that we've become a very global world. We've become a very complex world. We have all sorts of technologies. There's so much you need to know these days to be a good leader. And I think one of the problems is that we still have this myth of sort of the heroic leader who will come in and solve all our problems, rather than looking at it from what I was talking about before, is that if you're a leader, your job is, first of all, to realize that the world is complex. You don't know about everything. All the decisions that you make are impacted. You know, people might, a leader in Canada might make a decision, but whether it's going to be successful or not will depend on what China is doing, or what the United States is doing, or what Russia is doing, or what Pakistan is doing. I mean, there's all these sort of factors, and you have to be. And then you've got all the businesses that operate around the globe. So, you can't understand all of that and make really wise, good decisions by yourself. And I think that both the public, and also I think people who become leaders often, at least in the political arena, just become rather full of themselves and think that they can do it all and that they can make, these good decisions. So I think part of it is that we need to change our concept of what a leader is. A leader may just be sort of like a coach on a sports team, whereby you're trying to pick the best people to do the best positions. So you're carefully evaluating people. And that's something I found in the good leaders that I study, is this incredible ability to see other people's talents and how they might use them. And to realize that there's areas where delegation is very important, but there's also, the other side of that is that you have to be very careful who you delegate to if you are the leader. So I think it's this change in the world. It used to be that one person could found a business and be totally in charge of that entire business, know everything that was going on in it. That's impossible now. You may have people working for you who speak a different language than you do.
That's right.
And you may think you're communicating with them when you're actually not communicating with them, or you think you're getting the right information from them when you're not. I mean, it's just this incredible world, which is very rich and interesting, but on the other hand, the idea that you can sort of like the traditional Middle East, or not medieval, I guess, idea of leadership, you know, where you lead the troops or your knights into battle, and you're marching at the front of this, no longer to me makes any sense, but I think there's a tendency to cling to it in all countries. This idea of the savior, there's one person who can lead you out of trouble, and I think that's a rare person.
That's right. As you just said, that a good leader needs to know a lot of things, you know, and one of the things is technology, because you know it's we are going through the high tech. I mean, thingy, and obviously they have to be technologically very, I mean, savvy. So, but don't you think that we are overburdened or kind of trapped in that technology treadmill?
I do think that we've allowed technology to determine, to make too many decisions for us. I mean, in some ways you can look at the financial meltdown that occurred, you know, in the United States, and that was in part because people were developing all these mathematical models, and I suspect the people at the top really didn't understand those models, didn't understand their weaknesses, didn't understand that they were only sort of an abbreviated version of reality. So I think we've become too reliant on it. And I also think, you know, technology is a great way to hide things. You know, you don't know, I mean, look at Microsoft, who keeps issuing new versions of Windows and new patches because they can't get it perfect, because it's so complex and there's so much software there. And I think, you know, when you just rely on technology to make decisions, that's a bit of a gamble. And actually, I've heard of software that's been used and programs and models that have been used for, you know, designing programs where subsequently 20 years later they find that there was a mistake in the software and that their projections were not correct. And so, and I also think technology has resulted in, even in the workplace, that people end up creating reports, requiring that forms be filled out. It's so easy to create a form or a report on the computer that we're just overwhelmed. Everybody's overwhelmed with documents, with, you know, different little tasks that they need to do on their computer, and with email, etc., so that we're also creating a world that's filled with stress.
That's right. That's right.
As a result of that, because, you know, just answering your email sometimes can take like 2 or 3 hours out of your day. And, you know, that's time lost to be thinking about more serious issues. And
that's very time consuming, you know, checking your emails and all that. If you have more than one account, then, you know, it's
and then you got your mobile phone.
That's
and
right.
Then you've got maybe your regular phone, and you know, you're just jumping from one technological tool, but you're not giving anything serious thought. Then you're not really solving problems. And at least in the area of leadership, you need people. You know, we need people to really be able to think seriously about issues and problems, and look at what the facts are in different areas, and to inform themselves. And
that's right. I agree with you.
It's hard to do. So there is a downside, certainly, to technology.
That's right. True. Okay, I mean, we'll go for a short break, and then we'll talk about your book, and we'll talk to Shahryar. So stay with us, viewers. We'll be back.